Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're launching an investigation into what you might call a 300,000-year-old biological missing persons case, the complete disappearance of our natural sleep. We're going to look at some wild evidence today suggesting the way you and I sleep right now is fundamentally broken, or at the very least, completely detached from our biological history.
Okay, let's just dive right into it. You know the feeling. Waking up at 2 a.m. is basically diagnosed as this frustrating modern disorder, right? You're staring at the ceiling, checking your phone, totally stressing about how exhausted you'll be tomorrow. But wait, what if your brain actually isn't broken? What if it's just trying to boot up a perfectly healthy ancient software program, one that's been hard-coded into our DNA for hundreds of thousands of years? Think of it less like a glitch in your system and honestly more like an original feature that we just forgot how to use.
We really have to contrast our frantic modern view of waking in the dark with the ancient view. Today, you go to a doctor with this issue, they pull out a clipboard and boom, pathologize it as insomnia disorder. But for our ancestors hanging out by a campfire, this middle-of-the-night waking was literally just a normal, fully expected part of being human. It wasn't some disease to cure, it was just how the night worked.
Which brings us to Section 1, the evidence. 300,000 years in the dark. Let's get into it.
To really understand the crime scene of our modern bedrooms, we first need to look at how our ancestors actually survived the night. And spoiler alert, early humans had terrible night vision. We were practically blind in the dark, making us incredibly vulnerable to nocturnal predators. I'm talking leopards, hyenas, wolves. These animals totally own the night. Because of this, humans clustered around campfires. The fire wasn't just to stay warm, it acted as our original home security system, creating this very specific 30-foot safe zone of light in a terrifyingly dark world.
So this campfire fundamentally changed our evenings. The firelight extended the day by a good 2 to 4 hours past sunset. And this extra time was absolutely crucial. It was used for logistics, planning the next day's hunt, and all that rich storytelling that really bonded the community. But here's the absolute kicker. While the fire extended their waking hours, it was dim enough and red enough, acting honestly exactly like that blue light filter or night mode on your modern smartphone, that it didn't hack or break their internal biological clocks. The brain still totally knew it was night.
Moving right along to Section 2, the missing time. Biphasic sleep.
So, what actually happened after that fire died down? Well, investigators found the answer buried deep in historical records. For centuries, you guys, old texts had been totally mistranslated by modern historians who just assumed everyone always slept in one continuous 8-hour block. But when researchers started looking closer at ancient diaries, prayer books, handwritten letters, and even court records, they discovered our ancestors experienced a radically different sleep schedule.
They practiced what's called biphasic sleep. It functioned a lot like a play with an intermission. So first you had sleep 1, about 4 hours of initial sleep. Then came the awake gap, this 1 to 2 hour period where people naturally woke up right in the middle of the night. Following that gap, they went back down for sleep 2, another 4 hours of rest until dawn. Guys, this wasn't an exception or a weird quirk. This was the completely normal universal standard of human sleep.
And what did they do during this midnight awake gap? Well, they certainly weren't tossing and turning in a total panic about being awake. They used this time. They lay in bed and interpreted the dreams they just had, they studied, they wrote by candlelight, some even got up and safely visited their neighbors in the quiet of the night. It was this beautiful time of peaceful reflection and thought, which is obviously a stark contrast to modern humans frantically doom-scrolling on their smartphones at 3 a.m.
All right, Section 3, the suspect, artificial light.
So if this biphasic sleep is how our bodies are actually designed to work, what acted like a biological override switch to completely erase the awake gap from our modern lives? Let's look at the prime suspect here, artificial light. For 300,000 years, sunset meant the slow onset of complete darkness, but we erased that entire evolutionary history in basically one generation. The shift started in the 1600s when Paris introduced the first street lamps to cut down on crime. Then came the widespread use of gas lamps in the 1800s, right up to Thomas Edison's electric bulb in 1879. Just like that, we had the power to banish the night entirely.
And that brilliantly illustrates the biological cost of that invention. Artificial light, especially that harsh blue light from screens and modern bulbs, shoots right into our eyes and completely tricks the brain into thinking the sun is still up. Look at this. A modern city human at 11 p.m. has their melatonin, that absolutely vital sleep hormone, crushed to just a fraction of its natural level. Now compare that to someone camping out in a tent for a week, relying only on natural light.
Without those bulbs or screens, the camper's melatonin production surges up to 5 times higher completely naturally. We have literally artificially blinded our internal clocks.
And that brings us to Section 4, the smoking gun, the 1992 NIM-H study. But how do we know for sure that the old biphasic sleep program is still inside us, just waiting to run? Well, researchers designed an incredibly fascinating experiment to strip away that artificial light override switch. They took a group of volunteers and completely isolated them from lamps, bulbs, and screens. For an entire month, these volunteers were plunged into 14 hours of complete darkness every single night, perfectly mirroring the natural winter darkness our ancestors would have faced.
The results? Absolutely stunning. Without the artificial light tricking their brains, their bodies didn't just, sleep longer. They automatically reverted right back to the ancient program. Their sleep naturally fractured into 2 distinct pieces: 4 hours of sleep, a quiet awake gap, and 4 more hours of sleep. The ancient software booted right back up, all on its own.
But wait, the researchers found something even more incredible hidden inside that awake gap. During that natural middle-of-the-night waking period, the volunteers' brains soaked in a massive surge of a hormone called prolactin. Now, prolactin is absolutely vital. During this natural awake gap, prolactin levels spiked to daylight-equivalent peaks, creating this incredibly peaceful, calm, and deeply meditative state. It's a highly unique chemical condition that literally only happens naturally in the middle of the night.
And this completely reshapes our understanding of modern insomnia. Just contrast these two states for a second. The modern city human waking at 2 a.m. turns on a lamp, glares at a phone, gets super stressed out, and has low prolactin. It's frantic, right? And it's pathologized. But our camping ancestors and the volunteers in that study experienced waking at 2 a.m. as a perfectly peaceful, highly resting state, biologically swimming in calming hormones. They were experiencing an entirely different state of consciousness.
Which leaves us with a really provocative question to wrap up our explainer today. By blasting away the darkness just to squeeze a few more productive hours out of the day, do we completely eliminate a unique, deeply peaceful state of human consciousness? We basically traded the quiet, meditative midnight of our ancestors just for the convenience of a light switch. So the next time you wake up at 2 a.m., remember, your body might not be broken at all. It might just be looking for a piece we left behind.